Nerd Skool is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Welcome to Nerd Skool.
Nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
Yeah.
Suck it, nerds!
Nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
Suck it, nerds!
Nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
Suck it, nerds!
Nerds! Nerds!
Welcome to Nerd Skool.
Ooh, recording in progress.
All right.
It's okay.
So, do you have any questions, Joe?
Yes.
Let's
Yep.
intro the movie.
Yeah,
Good
what?
gracious.
What movie did we watch? Is that your first question?
Civil War. Did anybody else have any concerns when you were like Googling stuff about this that you were going to get flagged as like a MAGA supporter, like trying to figure out a civil war or something?
No, that didn't happen.
Not if, well, if you wasn't,
And they're not looking up the Civil War. They think
Right.
they won, so they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be Googling it.
Well, don't they want a new civil war? I mean, aren't they like trying to plan a civil war?
Who knows what they're trying to do?
They're
trying to overthrow the government, quote unquote, save the government, quote unquote, whatever.
they ain't trying to save shit.
Okay,
They're
before
trying
we
to-
start,
You
TBJ,
know
what are you eating today on our podcast?
All right. My breakfast this morning is some white cheddar Smart Foods popcorn.
That's your breakfast. Yeah.
It is.
breakfast of
Art-
champions.
Art Star, what are you eating? And are you sipping on some coffee, TBJ?
TBJ does not drink coffee. Fun fact: she never drinks coffee.
Whoa.
She doesn't like coffee. It is sweet tea in a coffee mug because why not?
Okay. Okay. Sweet tea. We're in the South. Andy's a big
Yeah.
sweet tea fan. Andy
Well,
doesn't
I,
drink coffee.
I am, but I've stopped drinking sweet tea because
What?
much
I
sugar.
do the unsweet now because too much sugar.
I guess
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
went
am at the point where I have to cut my sugar intake.
okay because you have to. Because Lord, I went out of town this past weekend to DC. And I sat down at a restaurant and they said, "What would you like to drink?" And I said, "Sweet tea, please." And she said, "Too far north, honey." And I said, "God dang it, you're breaking my heart."
Yeah, you don't get that up.
Breaking my
Yeah, you don't get that up there.
They're missing out.
If you go to Union Station in DC, there's a Bojangles inside of there. But for the most part,
the
I remember the
McDonald's.
first time,
She was like, "You
the
have to
first-
go to McDonald's for sweet tea." And I was like, "Come on, y'all."
the first time I had sweet tea, I was like, "What is this liquid diabetes concoction?"
Deliciousness.
I'm glad I don't live in the South.
It's
Then I
nectar
came
of
down
the
here.
gods. It is the
And I would
nectar
keep
of
drinking
the
it. Sometimes I would go to Bojangles and get like the little half quart thing, and I'd sit it in my refrigerator. And like I come home from wherever I was, immediately grab that shit, started drinking it. I gotta stop buying this shit. This shit's like liquid crack.
It
You know,
is.
like you just can't stop drinking it.
Those
It's
of
sugar
you,
water.
not
You know,
good.
you
Yeah.
put that out for hummingbirds and your
those of
hummingbird
you in
feeder.
the North, Bojangles is a fast food place that has chicken and biscuits,
Bojangles. It's a
which I
spicy-
didn't know what it was when I moved down here, and somebody's giving me directions. You know, it was like,
Yes,
"Oh, turn
if
left
you-
at the Bojangles," and I was like, "What's
Yeah,
a
the
Bojangle?"
Bojangles.
If you've never been to Bojangles, highly
Bojangles.
suggest it. Make your way down. You can come visit Nerd School in the Carolina and
Yeah.
go to Bojangles
Even weirder is Harris Tater. You go take a ride at the Harris Tater.
at the
Well,
Teeter.
see, ironically enough, Harris Teeter is, stretching northward. Because like there's one
is.
in Baltimore now. There's a couple in
Mhm.
DC. Actually, in the Nat Stadium, they have like a Harris Teeter logo up in the damn stadium. So
Look
it's
at us
it's
spreading.
Harris Tater.
But it's
Harris
also
Tater.
owned by
Spreading like
Kroger.
wildfire.
It's also owned by Kroger now. So
Yes,
maybe that's
I like that because now when I go home to Toledo, my Vic card for Harris Teeter works in the Kroger gas stations. They
Oh,
always
look
have
at you earning some
and
you know,
earning points. Yeah,
earning points wherever you
Yes.
go.
I love how
Guys,
this,
I think
this nerdy. I love how this nerdy podcast is about grocery shopping.
We're adults,
And-
okay? We're not young.
And wait a minute. Yeah, what are we doing? We don't have time to be talking about this. We
No,
got so
really
much
got
to
a short
cover.
episode.
We are
Let's
this.
get into it.
This is phase 3.
4.
Right?
No, 3. Yes.
Three. This is the
3.
Yeah, this is the
Sorry, my
beginning.
brain was like because of this particular movie and all the TV shows we watched in Phase 4 that it connects to, my brain is in 4, but it's
and that starts season 3
yes
of Nerd School. We're in
I
our
did
third
notice
season.
the new blurb that you have for the podcast.
There's a new blurb.
Yeah, well, I downloaded Overcast last night,
Uh-huh.
and then I was subscribing to Nerd School, and I saw that you put in there we was about to begin season 3, and you was more like,
I did.
yeah, you like
Joe, were you sober when you
Yeah, I don't remember doing that. I don't.
did it?
I know I updated
Yeah.
it. You know what? Here's what I did. I think you guys, Andy gave a description. I think for when we were on at the Heroes Con,
Oh, so that's when you did it.
and you were like, "Hey, that would be a great. We should update the description of the podcast on the website." And I think I just copied and pasted whatever Andy wrote in that
So the credit
program.
goes to Andy.
program. Yeah,
Really? Okay.
it's
Good
about
job,
time
Andy.
Professor Andy does something around here.
Yeah, I don't do
I
anything.
would say he
I would
does
like
a
to
lot of
point out
that.
that Kroger has become problematic because I think they put Mitch McConnell's wife on their board of operations or something.
Come on, Kroger.
Yeah,
I think anytime Mitch McConnell's mentioned, there should be a barf sound.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People, there
Two
should
barf
actually
sounds.
be a guy barfing appearing above his head and just barfs all over his
He's
head.
the worst. All right, but back to phase 3. We're in phase 3, season 3 of Nerd School, MCU Phase 3. We're done with our summer movie thing, and we're in a new season.
Which Tiffany won the summer movie challenge.
She always
That's true.
does.
Go
She
back
always
and
do
catch
know.
the episodes. Second year in a row, reigning champion.
Blah 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 blah.
But
Just want the
because
people to know who's good at picking good movies that aren't in order of the MCU. Her name is Tiffany. Thanks.
That's right.
since we're in a new season, we're all gonna have some new character arcs for our characters on the podcast. There's gonna be love triangles going on, all kinds of drama going on.
Yeah,
gonna-
no.
We're gonna know a little bit more about Art Star's personal life this season, possibly.
Bar fights are going to happen.
Bar fights will happen.
TJ
That's
will
right.
not be around any of these new developments. She
There will be
at home.
maybe our first Nerd School wedding will
I'll go-
happen. This
I'll go
season.
to a rehab.
Andy's gonna be in rehab.
And
Oh God. Yeah.
and then it'll flash forward to Nerd School season 25,
Yeah,
and we'll all be old, and that will be us.
we'll
No,
play.
we'll be all talking heads.
Yeah.
We'll play a quick round of see how many things you can hide in Andy's back hair.
We are.
That'd make for a really
We
good
are
podcast
problematic.
episode.
This is Captain America: Civil War.
This
Oh, okay.
is indeed Captain America.
Welcome to Captain America: Civil War. And this,
And what a way to kick off the phase 3 with this super double hamburger full of drama, action, and intrigue.
oh yeah, there's a lot of.
Listen,
There are so many damn superheroes in this movie.
Oh my gosh!
but
And-
I loved that part, and part of me loved it. Well, one, when you go back and rewatch, sometimes you forget things because
Mhm.
you know we're all above a certain age,
yes.
Yeah.
and life is happening constantly, and 1,000 movies has come out since, and
And
so
these
your
movies are all
brain-
running together now.
Yeah,
There's so
yeah.
many. Yeah.
And so as people kept appearing on the screen, I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah. So this was
Yeah,
my-
oh yeah, Ant-Man. Oh yeah, Spider-Man.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how. And then when the scenes happen, I go, duh, you remember that scene, but also you forgot that these characters were in this movie. So it's my favorite. Like I went in taking notes thinking I was just going to talk mostly about conflicts and two sides and who is right and who is wrong. Then I ended up with 1,000 things that had to do with random characters that I just hadn't seen in a while and missed and cried about.
Oh yeah, I watched this movie 3 times getting ready for this, and even the last one I watched just before we were going to record yesterday, I just finished, and I was halfway through it, and I was like, "This has got to be almost over." There's been so much action after the airplane scene. I think it's almost done. I'm like, wait, but isn't there's supposed to be some other things that still happen? Is that still this movie that this happened? There's so many things, and then it still happens in the last. Like right up until the end, it's badass. And I think with the heroes fighting each other, it feels more like
Yeah.
a Hero Clicks game or something. where you bring, because heroes don't usually fight each other, but it's like, on that, it's everybody against everybody. Whoever you pick.
Well, usually at least in comic book lore, when heroes fight each other, it's when they first meet and they don't know each other, and they always
Yeah.
assume there's a fight,
You
and
can have a
then
big pissing
they
match.
figure it out and go fight the real bad guys. Until I feel like that's then Secret Wars was the first big giant crossover in the 80s, where it was basically some omnipotent fanboy gathers all of the heroes of the galaxy and puts them all on one world and tries to make them fight. And so like heroes fighting heroes is classic comic book lore. But Civil War, when the comics came out, which was a very different story and was much shittier than the movie. The movie defeated comics as far as making Civil War a good story.
You didn't like the comic series?
Oh God, no. It was
why do you like the comic series?
I was say, Art, did you like it, or are you just being devil's advocate?
I mean, even yesterday when I was doing a little I'm saying mind research. Yes, I'm saying mind research, shit that I can hold on into my head. Like how in the MCU we had the Sokovian Accords. In the comic book world, it was called the Superhuman Registration Act.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess it was like, to me.
Oh wait, so I feel like this. Maybe we should get to the like. So
No,
you
because
Civil War was a huge deal in Marvel Comics back in
it
the
was in
mid-2000s.
comics before. So the
yes,
Sokovian
but not
Accords
this story.
Is not,
Sokovia is not.
it's not
I
in
think
the comics.
Sokovia was a country made up for the movie, but it follows a history of Marvel having made up countries.
Okay, we'll get to that, but go ahead and finish your point. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
what I
feel
was
like
just going to say was
answering a lot of
like
questions.
even though it was a lot going on in the Civil War comic series, like how you were just sitting there saying hero versus hero or whatever. Like there was so much in that. Like in this, you kind of get glimpses of that. Not to be jumping ahead, but like when Rhodey gets hurt and how Tony just blasts Anthony Mackie, like not even an afterthought, like what I'm saying, like oh shit kind of moment, right? But then like in the comic series, you have a guy who will meet in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but you have a guy who got literally murdered by a clone Thor that changed the whole scope of things. And I'm like, from there, it kind of just like took off because you had people who you had friends against friends, but then it was just like, I'm gonna say, a motherfucker got killed and shit got real. To me, that was like, whoa, this is a kind of a deep series that like, I felt like it was bold of Marvel to do some shit like that.
Yeah,
I'm not getting
but
the same
everyone
kind of
was
aspect with the whole Wanda thing. So I don't necessarily. It was a lot to take in, but I don't think it was that bad.
I didn't like it because it felt like my phrase I remember at the time was it's like they're pounding square characters into round plot holes.
Yep.
It's like they're not everyone like Iron Man pretty much just went full fascism, and whereas Captain America just became really reckless and obnoxious. And
are you talking about in the comics?
In the comics.
Okay, gotcha.
In the comics.
I mean, I was watching this again last night and like they took the elements of like the characters getting consumed by their conflict and stuff like that. Like they had the elements of Iron Man being completely pro-government. That was there, that bent was there, but it wasn't done as poorly as it was in the comics. And when I read about Mark Millar wrote the main series, I believe, and I think later we found out like half of that, like the main storyline, it was like, as we said in comic books, there's like the big storyline and then there's shit tons of tie-ins. Like every comic that came out during this period was tied into Civil War somehow because it engulfed everything.
And what time period was this?
This is, I want to say 2005-ish.
2006
to 2007.
2007.
Yeah, and this, incidentally, just while I'm thinking about it, I didn't like Civil War engulfed everything that took place on Earth, and I didn't like the storyline because everyone was just kind of out of character, horrible, and This is also when the Abnett and Lanning, Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning Guardians of the Galaxy series started. It like with the Annihilation storyline, and that gave me like, great, I don't like anything that's taking place on Earth, but this space shit is awesome. This is why I really started liking the Guardians of the Galaxy and like a lot of the Marvel cosmic stuff, because they gave me something that wasn't connected to Civil War that I could read, because everything I read in Civil War was bad. And Mark Millar was apparently in the hospital barfing most of the time while he was writing this. I'm not sure what his problem was, but it made sense when if he was in like a fever dream. But he also tends to write very bombastically and sort of obnoxiously. I think the Kingsman movie, or you've heard of the Kingsman movies?
Yeah.
That was based on it.
Kingfisher?
No.
Kingsman.
No. But I really thought everyone was being really awful.
This is a case where the book is not better than the movie. Is that what?
In my opinion, I don't know, what art may differ, but and
You
then
guys
it was
feel like
different.
they took elements from the book that a lot of people didn't like, or some people didn't like, and kind of used those themes in the movie pretty well. They
have the same general theme as Team Cap versus Team Iron Man.
Okay.
Captain America in the comics was rebelling against the government instituting a Superhuman Registration Act, which was as a result of a stupid, like,
reality show.
the New
Right.
Warriors was like this team of young heroes, and they suddenly had a reality show because reality TV was just kind of exploding at the time. And then here's us being superheroes, you can film it. And then they cornered this bad guy named Nitro, who just blew up and like killed a school and killed a whole town. So it became this huge thing, like, oh, unregistered superheroes are a danger to everything in the world, so we have to do this. And then Iron Man, like, there's a line in the movie where Hawkeye is sort of calling, it's the futurist, everybody, it's the futurist.
Yeah.
But
That
then
was like a
also you
big
have,
thing he
just
was
like
calling
how-
himself in the comics.
Okay.
Just like how in the movie, how Iron Man went and like recruited Peter. Like in the comic, he fucking used Peter. Peter became like the face of the Superhuman Registration Act, literally.
Yeah.
He unmasked.
Yeah,
And
this
let the world know who he was.
that was one interesting thing that came out of it, was like the Superhuman Registration Act was really big. Like, secret identities were still a huge deal. And Spider-Man's secret identity is a big deal. And this would force all the active superheroes to reveal their secret identities. And there was a lot of rebellion against that. Cap thought it was an invasion of privacy, that kind of thing. So he was very much on the let operatives do their own thing as long as they're doing the right thing. And whereas Iron Man was like, no, we have to put everyone who doesn't agree with this in prison. And it was really obnoxious and over the top. But they did a storyline where like Spider-Man basically went public. He unmasked himself and became a thing. And
But then did all these people go after him then?
He had more protection, but as a public, like, Iron Man was able to, like, protect his whole family and stuff like that. But villains kept trying to do it. J. Jonah Jameson passed out when he found out that like, his little kid reporter. That was kind of an interesting thing, but then they eventually had to have Doctor Strange mind wipe everybody, which happens in the most recent Spider-Man movie.
Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Yeah. I just want to say
let's not fuck Joe's brain up.
Yeah, we don't need to get too far into the comics.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get to all that, but I like the fact that I think this is a good storyline for these MCU movies, because what they've always done is made comic lore seem realistic in a realistic way, and what would really happen. And one thing that would really happen is, if there was real superheroes, the government would immediately want to register them and put in laws and rules and all this crap, all this red tape and everything. So it's like what would really happen if there were superheroes. And so I think it's a great conflict, and it's a neat way to get
a good social commentary.
Yeah, for sure.
On different sides, because it falls, it's not an old movie, right? It's 2016. We've gone through a lot of conflicts by that point in the world. And there are lots of discussions always about what is the government doing? Who has a right to know what they're doing? Who is over here? What are they doing? Who has a right to need to know information?
And what needs to be done and what isn't
Yeah.
being done and what should be done and who is preventing what should be done from being done.
Right. And it happens, it's a constant conversation. And I've been on both sides of that conversation, right? As a military member, there are things you don't need to know all the details of my day-to-day work life. Like, honestly, you don't. But if something is marked secret or top secret, it's for a reason. It's not always shady. Sometimes it's safety. Sometimes it's protection. You can live in a not knowing world. Sometimes it's good for you. As a parent, my kids don't need to know every detail, right? There are things that I know as an adult navigating the world big picture that they don't need to know small picture, even though they'd fight me. So like everyday citizens are like my kids who are fighting me for information. And, parents are like, it's a need to know basis. So this movie does a good view and taking two of the leaders, right? Two of the leaders of Avengers and making them each on one side of the commentary and having to deal with that.
There were seeds of that of like sort of conflict between Cap and Iron Man previously. In Age of Ultron, they had a big head butting over,
first Avenger,
reckless AI Iron
from
Man
the
kind of
beginning
going
when they
off.
met.
Yeah, and then like there's a bit where in the first Avengers movie, there's a bit where Iron Man just decides to defer to Cap, like call it Cap. What are we doing here? And then Cap comes up with a plan and they figure it out. And then there's a bit in Age of Ultron where they start. Iron Man goes, yeah, he's the boss. I just pay for everything and do everything and build everything and fix everything, and I do everything, but he's the boss. So,
but it did feel like they were building to this.
Oh yeah,
like they knew what they had their plan. But anyway, so this was TPJ is right. It's 2016, directed by Anthony Russo and Joe Russo,
the Russo brothers.
Yeah, they directed Winter Soldier.
Okay,
and that which was it's still considered one of the best MCU movies, and so they gave them this, the third Cap movie, and then they was, you're doing really good. We're going to give you the next two Avengers movies as well.
But it's crazy when you look at the starring. Like this is one of those. I guess they've all been to this point, but just the amount of people in this: Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Don Cheadle, Jeremy Renner, Chadwick Boseman, Paul Bettany, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Rudd, Emily Van Camp, Tom Holland, Frank Grillo, William Hurt, and Daniel Bruhl. Like that's
pretty much every
as the stars. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
everybody
11, 12, 13, 14, 16 stars in it.
A lot of A-listers.
Yeah, it's just amazing that they can do this, and how great it is that nerds have spent all their money on this so that they can make all this. And everybody,
but most of these people became A-listers because of the MCU.
Sure, yeah, right. I'm sure. Yeah, some of these weren't as big. Like Tom Holland, I'm sure wasn't as big. William Hurt was nothing until this.
No,
I would say he is an exception.
I think Tom Holland, Robert Downey Jr. was kind of saved by Iron Man. This was his
comeback.
Chris Evans, he was the Human Torch in some mediocre Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah.
He was up and coming, but
Cheadle was already Cheadle. Cheadle was already Cheadle.
Yeah.
But Cheadle
was already Cheadling enough for the Cheadle Club.
Everybody loves Cheadle, and everybody knows he was made by the Golden Palace.
Cheadle.
The Golden Palace made him what he is.
I think Marvel introduced Cheadle to everybody, but to most people, we'd all at some color.
Well, and he's a friend of the show.
Cheadle I forgot you are his best friend.
We're good friends. You've dated him.
Yes, a long time ago. Forever
I've dated him.
Here we go. Love triangles.
It's
Season
a love
3.
triangle.
It's a love triangle.
Star TV.
Joe said it was coming.
It already came. First episode.
But I think this. It also, speaking of underrated but phenomenal celebrities, in the very beginning of the movie, we see Alfre Woodard, who is a legend, but her role is small. But the fact that they were like,
Alfred Woodard,
Don't know who Alfred
She's
is.
the one, the father of Charlie Spencer, the kid that
the
like
father
gives
of.
Iron Man the huge guilt trip right after the MIT presentation.
Oh,
Says,
I know
you
who that is.
But
Yeah,
my
she's
son died in
she-
Sokovia. And
She's
she's
a
also,
legend on
and
her
she
own.
has
lots of stuff. Yeah,
and she's got a big part in the Luke Cage Netflix series too. As a different
is she
character.
playing the same character?
No.
Oh no, she's multiple people in the MCU.
It's,
Yeah.
But she's
well,
like
that's-
Black
that's
Hollywood
one-
royalty legend.
Oh, I know her. Yeah, I
well,
You
don't
know,
know what do I know her from though. Like what's she
everything.
most?
Honest
She's in
to God,
everything. Holy crap!
you have known her. If
Yeah,
if
geez,
you
she's
read
in
her
everything.
filmography, you'd be like, wait a minute. Like her and Don Cheadle are the kinds of actors again in Black Hollywood.
Yeah.
We've all been like bow down. I think this was. I feel
Oh
like
my
Cheadle was
gosh,
in the mainstream,
Crooklyn.
but people were weird.
Hotel Rwanda was a big thing for Cheadle.
Yeah, it
Yeah, he was
Oh
awesome.
my God, he
in
was
that,
so
yeah.
good in that. But if you take all the way back, like Cheadle's been on the scene for so long
Yeah.
and so
Golden
good
Palace.
in
Night Court episode where he took
everything.
everybody hostage.
Yes,
I
he
think I know her from 12 Years a Slave, probably the most, but she's been around forever.
no, she is again
remember
a
the
legend.
70s.
If you were like, who are the top actresses in Black Hollywood, she'd be one of them.
She
just
is
who she
a big
is.
deal. Yeah, she's been in
But the
TV
fact
shows,
that this
right?
movie, the fact that Marvel was like, "Hey, girl, who's probably could sit down and be all right," we got like 5 minutes of a movie for you.
Oh yeah,
And she was
Sinbad's
like,
on there,
sure.
Hill Street Blues.
Yep. I
That
can't remember
tells
what
you
came
how
first, the
good.
Luke Cage series or this, but I
feel
think
like
it was
this-
kinda close
this
at the same
came
time.
first.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out when Luke Cage came out. I feel like Civil War was first.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
probably.
everything.
I don't know when they started it. That, well, then again, the Netflix stuff started pretty much right after the
yeah, she was
you know
evil
how.
and he was a bad guy in the Luke
Luke,
Cage.
yeah, about the same
Yeah.
time. Luke Cage was 2016 as
Oh,
well.
so she was listen, she was getting that check.
That's
on
right.
two counts.
Gosh,
And
But,
Civil War first.
Yeah, so that, I mean, this, like, that whole Alfred Woodard scene is like it Age of Ultron made such a big deal out of you know, what is Shield supposed to be? They're supposed to save innocent people. They're not supposed, like, which was kind of a response to, you know, Man of Steel, Superman being completely reckless and destroying an entire city,
Right.
whatever, and not even trying to get away from innocent people. But this kind of brings it back. Like Cap has the line here. It's like, you try to save as many people as you can, and sometimes that doesn't mean everybody. And the people you don't save, I mean, that's a standard superhero thing. The things you try to do as much as you can, and you can't do everything, and there's still going to be failures. There's still going to be blind spots. There's still going to be times when, God, I'm just kind of realizing how much this is like all tying together. The whole thing that Spider-Man says, like rephrasing, like he didn't say with great power comes great responsibility, but he says, when you can do the things that I do and you don't, and the bad things happen,
Yeah.
they happen because of you. That,
Yeah, we'll get to
is-
that. Like I have that as
Yeah.
my notes too. So
but I'm just saying, like, this is, you know, that's Alfred Woodard shoving the picture
She- yeah,
of her
she
son to
is-
Iron Man.
yeah,
bad- You didn't,
She's kicking off that thought process for him.
yeah, the
Yeah.
bad things happen because of
Yeah.
you.
well, and she's like a real act. Not that everybody else is not a real actress, but she's like a real actress. So when she's there, it's, I don't know, it's like you believe, like it's more emotion, it's more real.
No, this
again,
movie
realism.
brought out. This movie was more than fights, right? This movie
Yeah.
was a lot
Like
of
emotion and
emotions. It was a
feeling, yeah.
lot of. We had grieving. We had, you know, trying to pick sides. We had a lot of grieving in this movie. I feel
Yeah.
like too many characters were grieving their parents.
Yeah.
But it was, I like that. I know not everyone loves that in a superhero movie, but I like when we have to have all of our feelings in one movie.
Well, that's it. You
It's so much good character work. It's so
Yeah.
much good character work.
We forget how good of actors all these people are. Like
I don't
when
forget.
ScarJo's serious for a moment
I
as Black
never
Widow, she
forget.
just kicked somebody's ass. She just did a Hurricane Rana, and now she's like emotional and like
Yes,
you want to
but
cry.
ScarJo's been doing this forever. Like I know
Yeah.
who they are outside of MCU.
See, I don't watch as much movies.
Yeah.
as many movies. But like, and even Robert Downey Jr. Forget, God, he is a good actor. Like at the end when he's like, "That's my That's my sword. My dad, he killed my mom. All this, but I don't know. We'll get that.
Yeah.
But let's jump right into the movie. It starts off
Okay.
with
No, Joe, with your
1991, and the Winter
Seems
Soldier,
important.
doing a hit job. We don't know who it is at this point, but
Yeah, but you establish what the Winter Soldier is. He's
And
an
so
assassin that they unfreeze.
so
mind
here
control.
was my big question about this whole thing. It's 1991 Winter Soldier. Refresh my memory. I should know this. And maybe I do know this, but so the last we saw Winter Soldier in the MCU was when in Captain America, right? When he,
Yeah.
well, the Winter Soldier, I guess,
Yeah.
when he fell off the train, right? And was frozen in ice or something.
No. That was the first
Oh.
Avenger. He was falling off and frozen in ice.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
whole Winter Soldier movie where he comes
Yeah.
back as the Winter Soldier,
And
and
we
they
talked-
realize that that's
watched
Captain
him.
America 2. And then the last we've seen him, they have the big fight.
But that was set in still the 40s. or
No, this
50s?
is modern day.
No, God.
Joe.
Did
No,
you
you
not
are-
retain?
you already-
It's been a
I
while.
forgot. So what
It's-
did he do? So how was he still?
Do you remember Captain America: The Winter Soldier? Do you remember that film?
Kind of. Yeah, I remember him doing all that, but that was present day, right? I can't remember.
The reason he survived is because in the first movie,
Yeah.
Arnim Zola had captured him
Yeah.
and was experimenting on him
Uh-huh.
and doing some shit before Captain America rescued the whole platoon and brought them all back to Tommy
Yeah.
Lee Jones, who was very happy about it.
Right.
But later, they're in a train and he falls off the train and they think he's dead.
And that's in the 40s.
That's in the 40s.
Yes.
We don't see him. We don't. In Winter Soldier, we find out what's happened to him is he was recovered. He basically,
This is the part I forgot.
yeah, he has become an assassin that
Yeah, I remember that.
a mentally reprogrammed assassin that
In the 40s, though, he's been assassinating people from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s.
Yes,
or,
but-
or do
but
they
they
freeze
just-
them
they-
for a while.
they freeze him, they
Yeah.
bring him out when they need a job done with
And
no
then freeze 'em
witnesses,
again.
and then they freeze him. They bring
Okay.
him out. They do, and they also mind control him every time. They
Right,
say all
right.
those code words
The code words.
to
which
make him
I wrote all
to
those down. yeah.
forget what he does, and they scramble his brain if he starts to remember. Because Robert Redford was like, "Yeah, just scramble his brain."
But so he's been frozen enough that he hasn't aged also for.
Right.
Him and Cap have been frozen.
Well,
for
Cap was
so-
frozen continuously, right? But
yes,
yeah.
but
this
he
guy's like
essentially keeps his time of unfrozen is very short bursts.
Yeah.
short burst to
Short
kill,
bursts.
kill
of-
somebody and then go back
Yeah.
to frozen.
And so
Literally,
the
he's
yeah.
just a weapon.
Right. And then the last time we saw him, Cap was trying to get to him and
Yeah.
remember who he was, and he was starting to do that. But they had this big fight to
Yeah.
prevent the Hydra plan to murder 800 million people that are problematic for Hydra rules. But they had this big fight at the end, and Cap was like, "All right, I'm not going to fight you because I'm with you to the end of the line." Which was
Right.
his
Yeah, I remember
best
that.
friend. And then
Gotcha.
they fall out of the helicarrier, they into the Potomac or whatever, and then because they're all beat up, but Winter Soldier pulls Captain America out of the river and leaves him on the shore, and then just walks away. And then
Yeah.
in the tag of that movie, he goes to the Captain America Museum and starts learning about his own life and who he was again.
You don't
just-
remember any of that, Joe?
Yeah, I kind of remember that. So this 1991 bit hasn't been portrayed at all before. So
No.
Captain America, when you go back to 91, Captain America's still frozen in ice
right.
because he doesn't come out till later. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is him in the 90s. And so is there really that kind of camera footage of this whole incident?
There could be. We
No,
got
so-
security.
Well, they keep flashing.
Like
I was
1991 was like 1952. when
It
we-
is. I was in high school. I didn't
They-
have a phone.
they
You never know,
they
but-
keep
Internet.
interspersing the camera footage with the memory of the
The
actual event.
memory. Yeah, right.
So like it's not all supposed to be the actual camera footage they have,
yeah.
but like they keep going back and forth.
Just a security camera.
And some
footage.
of it's like photo.
Yeah. Okay. So and then we jump into Lagos present day, and Wanda. They're doing this stakeout. You see Wanda, and she has her accent at this point. Secret stakeout, and they're going after Crossbones, who is Rumlow, who we thought was gone. Right? We thought he had
Yeah,
disappeared.
he was also in
Building
Winter
fella.
Soldier.
Yeah.
He was on Cap's squad, but until everyone half of Shield was revealed to be Hydra, he was one of them.
Yeah.
Brock Rumlow, and then he gets in a fight with Falcon until the building starts to collapse, and then the Falcon just like runs and flies off.
So
and
we thought he was
he's
dead.
kinda- Well, we see at the end of Winter Soldier that he's being carted off
Oh, right.
on a stretcher, but he's
Yes.
all
We
messed
even
up.
talked about that, I think.
Evening.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we see him go off. So is this
Almost like Rick Flag and not Rick Flag, Peacemaker and Suicide Squad.
Oh, I thought you said Ric Flair. Woo!
I started to say Rick.
Ric Flair is not affiliated with Marvel.
know.
So is this backstory of Crossbones similar to anything in the comics? Does
It's
anybody know?
similar. Like this is you. Oh, you get to see Crossbones in costume. In the
That was
comics,
cool.
Crossbones
Yeah.
was like a Red Skull disciple. He was a full-on Nazi, and
Oh,
to
okay.
the point where he was in love with the Red Skull's daughter,
Ugh.
who has not been introduced yet, but could be at any point.
Okay.
But it's yeah, it's close. It's close enough, and it's very much he's a Captain America.
I think a lot of people probably forget in this after you're done watching this movie, you forget about the fight scene right at the beginning with Crossbones with
Which
him
is
and
awesome.
Cap and
That whole
Falcon and
sequence.
Wanda.
Yep.
You know, that whole thing. It's good. Wanda pulling the gas out, and our first look at Crossbones and all that. Black Widow attack on the tank, and you know when she does that shock thingy to him, she tries to shock his neck, and he's like, "I don't work like that no more." What did that mean?
That means whatever the
was-
hell happened to him in his accident that
Yeah.
made it so he's maybe that he was experimented on or something, but it whatever transferred him from being carted off on a stretcher to being Crossbones,
So
which
does
we don't
that-
really see
does
much
that
of, but he's
suggest
still in
that it-
Hydra.
Does that suggest it might be like a super soldier type of thing?
Or yeah,
Something.
or maybe his nervous system is fucking shot. Who knows? Maybe it just somehow he's immune to electricity or whatever the stun gun he's doing is.
And we got the little cute little bit about she thanks Falcon, and he's like, "Don't thank me, thank Red Wing. He's cute. Go ahead and pet him." She's like, "I'm not
Yeah.
thanking that thing."
Yeah, I like that.
That was pretty cool. But then we had the cool,
And that's a way to reference the fact that Falcon actually in the comics has an actual bird named
Yep.
Red Wing.
Oh, he
that
does.
he has
It's
a
an actual
telepathic-
bird.
Yeah,
It's not a
in
robot.
the
bird?
comics, he doesn't have a robot bird. It's an actual bird. He has a
Oh.
telepathic link to.
Oh, so that's the way to introduce that.
Yeah.
I like this better, I think,
Mhm.
than if it was a real bird.
It makes a little.
Well, I don't know.
It's
if
a little
they
less silly.
Train a real bird well enough.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
that's true,
probably
too.
that's probably left over from the 70s or something, or the 80s when that was written.
Probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
what are you eating, Andy?
I'm eating. My wife
Jerky.
brought me breakfast, so I'm eating bacon.
And eating during a
We're eating.
podcast is always a great idea because it's an ASMR podcast.
Yeah.
Can you?
Artsar, you got any comments about that?
I was going to say something, but it's not.
Okay,
I'm
we got a
excited to be
cool
good.
sequence with ScarJo kicking ass and catching the payload. That minute when like it drops the gun thing, and
Yeah.
that's when it shoots it and the thing falls and she catches it. Payload secure, and then the Crossbones blowing himself up. But before he does that, the exposition about Bucky. You gotta go. You gotta go. When you gotta go, you gotta go. Kind of like let him know that he really is. He's telling the truth about Bucky. I
Well,
guess.
yeah, because he's just like, hey, P.S. He did remember you.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
remembered
just
you.
trying to get with his head to make
Yeah.
him feel as worse as possible before killing him.
Yeah, so
That's what he's
Cap
trying to do.
probably wasn't sure that he was still there. Probably thought he was just completely gone. He's not even Bucky anymore. And this was the
Yeah, because at the end of Winter Soldier, Cap never really saw Bucky come out of it completely.
yeah,
No.
So he's
that's right. Yeah,
and he doesn't know what happened to Bucky. As far as he knows, Bucky might still they're still looking for him because throughout Age of Ultron, they're trying to find him and they haven't been able
He's been
to.
in hiding. Yeah.
that's right. He was in. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go watch all those again. God damn it, my damn memory. Anyway,
Worst ability.
and then the kamikaze bomb, and he blows himself up, and that was really cool. How he was about to kill Cap basically, but Wanda stops it with her cool magic, and then of course she saves Cap, but then destroys that. Accidentally hits that building, and that
Right.
causes the whole big conflict of. But this is the way to get Wakanda involved. So if
Mhm.
she hadn't done
Which I
that,
love.
if she hadn't done that, which is terrible that she did that, but if she hadn't done that, would Black Panther have shown up? Probably not.
He wouldn't
Yeah.
have had a reason. Wakanda wouldn't have had a reason to.
Yeah.
To get involved.
So it's a negative thing, but it brought us Black Panther.
Yeah.
but it's a good storyline, and it's a cool thing
But
because
it's
that's
also the beginning of the conversation of casualties, right? Every
Yeah.
war,
Yeah.
every conflict, every fight that has ever been fought has casualties. And this is introducing that concept. And we are forced to look at who are the casualties and really what the effect of the world is off of the conflict. Because, you know, in the beginning, Marvel movies is like fight, fight, fight. And then we go on about our lives as if we didn't destroy a whole city.
Yeah.
Like, who
You
cares
know.
about the residual damage?
yeah.
Who cares
Damage
that half the
control is
people in the
coming in
building
and still
probably
take
did
care of
not
it.
survive when the building was cut in half? Whatever. But
Well, that's kind of a
this-
thing.
This is it.
Yeah, I mean, they always kind of down like the Avengers. They went home. We just went home. And like even Tony Stark is like talking about later how we dropped a building on him while we were kicking ass. And it's like it's not like they were struggling to save as many people as possible. They weren't trying to destroy buildings. I don't know when they dropped a building, but there's a lot of times where if like they keep trying to minimize casualties, they keep trying
Yeah.
to do these superhero things and protect everybody, and it just seems like sometimes they don't get credit for what they try to do. And then like Tony Stark always like I want to say it was in Ultron, maybe it's later, but like he's got like a
Oh, what? You forgetting details? Oh, you can't remember which movie's what? Oh, what's the matter? Not
That's
retaining any of
different
this?
than forgetting a whole ass plot, Joe. There's a big difference.
Here's
You
the
essentially
thing.
forgot like a whole part, maybe 75% of a movie. You forgot.
Yes, I admit that.
Right,
but
right.
The,
But
so the
it's-
cool, it's a double-edged sword here with the destroying property and the collateral damage is like the fact that they can now make these movies where you can destroy a building, like throw Hulk and he busts through 3 buildings and crushes everything, and it makes it like a realistic, like a comic book come to life, and it's cool and awesome. The CGI is awesome, it looks realistic, and everything's destroyed. But the downside is
In reality,
you
people
have
were
to,
in those
yeah,
buildings.
if we're making this realistic, you have to acknowledge that millions and millions of dollars of damage, billions that they're doing all the time.
Yep.
And then and then when they go into that thing where they force them to watch all the damage that they've done and all the hurt that they've
Yep.
caused, and they're all like, oh shit, ashamed. Like that was for me, the rest of the movie then when they're fighting at the airport, I'm like, hey, can't you be careful? Hey, don't destroy that. Hey,
But
we're
I
not-
want you to know that they fought at an airport that was empty, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to fighting in the middle of the city where there's a million people walking around. Like,
yeah, but even after like Wanda, you just watched all those videos and you're like, you're throwing
you're in the
cars,
heat of
you're
the
throwing
fight.
cars
I
at everybody,
think-
you're destroying everyone's vehicle.
but I think that's the point, right?
Yeah,
In
it
a
is.
conflict, there's no way you can have a conflict without casualties if it's physical, if it's violent. Everyone is affected, right?
Yeah, but
You
you have
don't
to
If
always-
I
rip
was
a
a
plane's wing
bystander
off?
on a
Like,
street, I am mentally affected.
But then
But
you-
there's no way the world can have conflict without consequences.
yeah.
And the
yeah,
trick is
that's a good point.
there's always conflict. There's always conflict somewhere in this world. So you 100% cannot avoid it. We don't have superheroes running around right now, but we do have American heroes, right?
What would you say the collateral damage that happens in the conflict between the TBJ Jedi and the Sith art star in the box office at stage?
I mean, I might have PTSD every time I've got to go work with Art Star.
The lies.
People around us are
Relax.
probably like, oh,
When
those
she knows
guys.
she has to work with me, she's like, "Oh yeah, the blood is going to be boiling, but I'm gonna be feeling great today because it's not going to be all drab, and I don't have to
I
necessarily deal with whoever might be sitting between us."
But imagine
Yeah.
if you had superpowers, you guys would be like the
If I had
person.
superpowers, I wouldn't have a job.
Well, the person selling
Not going to
parking would
work.
get like blasted out of the room.
Yeah.
The
But
see-
house manager be
that's
flying.
the thing. And I do appreciate Marvel for having this discussion in movie format because we as citizens can be very desensitized to conflict and weaponizing of conflicts. We become desensitized. We've lived through it. It's happening all around us all the time.
Yeah.
At this point, like our generation has lived through way too many wars, right? in way too many major tragic events. So we are at some point desensitized to a lot of things. And I think Marvel did a good job in this movie of introducing the fact that everything has consequences, and it's making you think, but not in a way where it's like, I'm going to hit you over the head with a thought process, right? It's making you think about what consequences look like from the beginning of the movie, from Alfred Woodard, from them going in and having to figure out what side I'm on, from the heroes getting in trouble. Like all of this are valid societal conversations that need to be had. But if I sat you down, Joe, and was like, hey, Joe, we're about to have this conversation about conflict in the world, you're going to be like, I don't want to have it. But if I said, hey, Joe, you want to sit down and watch Civil War with me? You probably would. And it's going to make you think anyway. You're thinking now, like you're having these conversations about, oh, crap, but it's all real, right?
Yeah.
It's not. It's a fictionalized story, but if we go through our history, it is not. There are wars that just aren't, we don't have mutants fighting them, but people are. And where they are fighting isn't somewhere out in an abandoned airport. Where people are fighting is in real life cities with real life people walking around, minding their business and becoming casualties. So I think Marvel does a good job. And this is not the first time they've had this conversation in a movie. But I think this is the one where they're like nailing it on the head, because we have to split the team up to do this. And it makes you go, there is no right side, essentially, right? There are pros and cons to each side. So where you decide to sit now, I will note, dear listeners, sometimes in life there are clearly right sides. But in this movie,
it is difficult.
There are pros and cons to each side.
And that's what I want to get into when we get a little bit further on in the movie. I want to ask you guys each where you stand, if you stand firmly on either side when we get to the division, because there's like a couple different points where you can kind of split your opinion. Like, okay, now I'm with Cap, or now I was with Cap a little bit. I was with Tony. Because I think it's funny how I remember when my son watched this when it first came out in 2016. As it wasn't right when it came out, it was whenever it came on streaming, because we watched it at home. But he got really upset and was mad at Cap for turning on like he saw Cap as the bad guy. He was like firmly, but at that time in his life, he was really law and order, like rule follower, kind of like thing. So he's probably evolved now. If he watched it again, he might be different. But it was just funny to me how he was like so firm. I was like torn on both sides, and he was like so clear, saw Captain America as a bad guy. So I kind of want to talk about that when we get into it.
I don't want to lose this thought I just had, remembering. It was Iron Man is on the side of, we need to be put in check, and whatever form that takes, I'm game, because he's feeling guilty about, Ultron is a huge thing that's his fault.
So that's
all
right.
that stuff.
He probably wouldn't be on that side if he hadn't just done what he did. And, yeah, so that's true.
And he's lost Pepper because he's too obsessed with what he's doing. So he's having that going on, and this is all just, it's like so much of this movie is screwing with Tony Stark directly where he lives in his psyche. Like,
I was just wondering if the Pepper thing is more of a, hey, quick, add this side note to explain why we didn't get Gwyneth Paltrow for this movie.
I'm sure that is.
I mean, that's a part of it, but it's real life consequence of what he does.
Yeah, it was a good way to add
have
it
a
in.
partner.
Yeah. Because like the whole thing at the end of Iron Man 3, it was like, all right, I'm gonna stop doing this. I'm destroying all my suits, blah blah blah. And then but we still need to have Iron Man in more movies. So he didn't stop. So so they wrote that in as a, let's not figure out how to work a Gwyneth Paltrow scene in. And
she's too busy making perfume smell like her vagina.
But I'm just thinking now of the bit, like he's all right, we need to be put in check. We need to have oversight, blah blah blah. But then by the end of this movie, General Ross is the oversight, and he's just putting him on hold and watching the line blink. And just ignoring what he's telling him to do. Because he's still Tony Stark. You can't sit there, you can't oversee Tony Stark because he pathologically cannot respect authority.
But I like that there's like, it's not just a clear black and white to it all. It's just like life where everything's kind of gray. It's like, there's this part of it, but these guys are right because of this. But that causes this, and that's a problem. But
Yeah.
this is because
It's
it's
a
all just like
it's
and
a
it's like
shit
real
ton of
life.
nuance that the comics
Yeah.
didn't seem to have.
Yeah, which I think, yeah, I'm not sure why it's like that. It's because movies kind of tend to do that. So then we get a flashback to young Tony. And I love at this point, it's really cool. I love the CGI Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Did they use footage from Weird Science to create that?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it looks
Because he looks like young Robert Downey
like
Jr. 'cause
real,
we all
and
know
that we
he
all
looks
know
like.
that from the 80s. And his Mr. Softy t-shirt. I get into these little details. Like you notice the t-shirt he's wearing, Mr. Softy. So I
Joe,
googled
the
that.
T-shirt guy.
Yeah, I love
Just
goofy
in case
t-shirt.
you
I got my
guys don't know.
Mr. Softy t-shirt, serving the very best is what it says on it. And so I had to look it up. And it's a real company. It's a real soft serve
Yeah.
ice cream. And it's all over. It's like started in New Jersey, but it's everywhere. They got it all over the country. I've never heard of it before. So let's all get t-shirts. You can buy them online.
In this
No, you need to
sequence,
buy Nerd School T-shirts as well.
yeah, true. That's what you do. Yeah.
this is the first time you see Tony Stark's mother.
Yeah,
We've seen Howard Stark periodically
multiple times
in different forms.
Yeah. Is this actress somebody famous or not?
Hope Davis. Yeah, she's a pretty strong character actress.
She is.
I've never.
We're gonna have like flashcards of people and their
Yeah.
roles for you.
Hope Davis, because she looked familiar to me, like Alfred Woodard.
Yes.
Yeah,
but
she's
I
been in a
don't-
lot of stuff.
I can't think of where Hope Davis is her name.
Do you know who Judy Greer is?
No.
All right.
Kidding?
Judy Greer is like the
Probably.
comedy version of Hope Davis, I think.
Oh, Judy Greer. That sounds familiar too. God dang it. Why can't I remember anyone?
But anyway, like I just want to make a note that there's an offhand joke in this sequence that forms the entire motivation for a villain in a later MCU film. When he announces the acronym of the
BARF.
system he's using, yeah,
Binarily augmented retroframing.
barf.
BARF.
That whole thing, just that one hand joke becomes the entire formation of Mysterio's motivation in a later Spider-Man movie.
Well, I actually read something about this just today. Something about that it proved, or some guy on YouTube was saying, if you look back, Mysterio's memory of this shows a laugh track, like everybody's laughing when he says barf. But in this movie, Civil War, when he says barf, nobody laughs, and
Right.
so he's remembering it differently than it really happened, or something. Is supposedly what it's supposed to be later.
Right,
but
right.
We'll save that for that movie because it's
coming.
confusing
Joe,
to
I
me.
wanted you went somewhere, but I needed to tell you when you talked about t-shirts. I was busy promoting ours, but just in case, Joe, you really want a Mr. Softy, they did just open a Mr. Softy near us.
Ooh,
So,
there's one
well,
in
it's-
Charlotte, right? Yeah, I saw there was one.
It's
in
like
Charlotte.
right over there where the Hobby Lobby and the Michaels and all that is.
We should do a live Nerd School event there.
Should we? Is that what you're aiming for?
Yes, or something, because it's part of this. Anyway, so we found out all this whole virtual thing is not just memory. He's at MIT Alumni Honors, and he says, "Oh, this is a binarily augmented retro framing. It's basically to help people with PTSD, I guess,
Yeah.
who have bad memories. It doesn't take away your bad memory, but it helps you, cope and replay your memory and say what you wanted to say, I guess."
Yeah.
And then he goes into how every student project has been approved and funded at MIT, and they're all excited. And we see the little cameo from Jim Rash from Community, who is a Charlotte native from Charlotte, North Carolina, right where we're the home of the Nerd School podcast. He went to Charlotte Latin, whose team colors are navy and white, home of the Hawks. Notable alumni include Daniel Jones, the quarterback of the New York Giants. Anyway, Jim
Also,
Rash.
Also continuing the Community cameos in Russo brothers movies. Russo brothers, who directed this film, directed episodes of Community.
Yes.
Danny Pudi, Abed, was in The Winter Soldier.
And we
had a
talked
cameo
about that.
there.
Yeah, Danny Pudi. So there's two Community people. Anyway,
And
he wants
there's
to
at least one more coming up in a future film.
Yeah, and so his little cameo is funny because he's asking Tony Stark if professors can be included in that money because he wants to make a self-cooking hot dog. And I just saw rumors. I don't know if you guys saw this news. Art Star is usually the breaking news on this front, but I saw that he is going to be in the next Marvel thing, the buckets or the
Joe.
some new Marvel thing that's got
Joe.
Thunder buckets.
something else
You
has the college in it.
are fired.
Coming up in next season, the next phase.
Well,
He'll be
we
back.
can talk about later. D23 is happening right now, and they just released a bunch of things that are coming up.
Yeah,
we had it.
Thunderbolts.
For
Yeah.
our novice nerds, TBJ, what's D23?
It's the big Disney convention. So it is like think Comic-Con, but just Disney.
Just Disney.
Just Disney, which
And they're-
owns Marvel.
Yeah.
And Disney recently, everybody's been saying is really problematic right now. Like their CEO is under fire for something, right? Or is this
No,
not
he was
new?
in a battle with DeSantos, who isn't. So I don't know.
Yeah.
If he,
Like-
Somebody
Disney-
said Disney
and
just
he
came
made-
out. They're real bad. Like they did something really awful, and they're
they have
Well, they're a-
always been under fire because they're a mega company.
well, their
and
CEO,
yes,
like their CEO specifically, I thought, right? Didn't he just do something bad to somebody?
I'll look. I listen.
I could be wrong. I don't know what I.
He did get booed at D23. Let's see why.
Unpopular comments on Super.
I mean, let's
because
also
he hates people
remember
like yeah.
rich white men are rich white men. So they're all problematic to me. All problematic. But D23 is the big convention, and they are releasing previews of things coming. Some things were released at San Diego Comic-Con, like the Wakanda trailer was released at San Diego Comic-Con, but other projects and TV shows and movies are being released at D23. That is happening this weekend.
Gotcha. Thank you for explaining.
While
that.
I'm
That's
at
good.
home
That's-
drinking sweet tea
Sweet
where I
tea.
need to be. So I've said this before on the podcast. I'll say it again. If anyone inside Marvel has an uncle, cousin, or brother-in-law who works for Marvel, holler at us. We should
Yeah.
be
I mean, you need us basically. And how cool
You
would it be if
want us.
in the
You
MCU
want us.
there should be a podcast of Nerd School in the MCU at some point. Like, we're doing our podcast and we have, somebody on and they, a building blows up and we all
We need
run.
to be on. We need a tour of the Marvel Studios.
Mhm.
We need to be
Can you
invited
give
to
me?
D23.
And I want superpowers. I want to
Well,
end up with superpowers.
I
You
mean, you're
work on
already a
that.
super soldier.
Is he? Is he
I think
though?
so. Security soldier serum.
No,
What would be
mind you,
what would be your
mind
superpower,
you,
Art Star?
Mind you, I just said I wanted superpowers. The Sith, and Joe said he is, and then the Jedi said, but is he?
You
But
keep
is-
okay. Can we dispel the myth that Jedis are nice? No one says we're nice. We just fight on the side of good. We just lead with light. No one ever said we're kind,
Well,
polite,
the
sweet
Jedi.
people.
This
You like to point that
said-
out as like a fault.
said
I'm not a
Jedi
sucker in
said
this life,
Jedi
sir.
is creating the conflict, while
No.
the Sith is just sitting back, waiting to.
I'm not
groom
creating
her.
a conflict.
to be
I am
his
simply
apprentice.
asking a question of Joe.
Every time you,
That is
but
not
like every
creating
time
a
you do this,
conflict.
all you're doing is bringing yourself closer to me as my apprentice.
No. Anyone who's met me in
Listen.
real life will
Eh, eh.
know that we will never be on the dark side. Which, it'll
You
be
say
interesting
that now.
later when Joe talks
You
about which
say
side of
that
the
now.
conflict we fall on. It's fine. Go for it. Keep going, Joe.
Yes,
Keep
I love
fighting.
it. I love
You know
it.
it's
No,
gonna
I want to
last
let this go. This is my
minute.
favorite part of the podcast.
No,
So, okay, so then we jump to the sort of thing where the news gets involved and we find out that Wakandans were killed.
Yeah.
Wanda's dragged through the media. We see she's in hiding, and then
Yeah.
we see the Secretary of State, and it's Ross, which I love that they used a character that's already this figure. So it's like kind of, I don't know, makes it all, feel like one.
I like how
plan.
you say that as if they were going to bring in a character who was not.
Well, they
there.
brought in what's his name from the Hobbit guy, who he's also a official guy. It could have been
The
just
Hob guy.
some no-name Secretary of State, some other old white guy, but I like that it's like Secretary Ross, who's already been the
Yeah.
Hulk, what he's actually a character. And then the Sokovia Accords get introduced, and there's 117 countries that have all been on board with this, and the UN panel is now in charge of the Avengers. Compromise, reassurance, that's what it's all about. That's how the world works. and this is where the Avengers split when they start talking about this, and this is where I wanted to first ask you guys, at this point, which side are you on? Again, just rehashing what we've already said, this feels realistic. Like this is what would really happen in the real world, that, you know, the UN would get involved. There's all these politics and politicians and everything. So for you guys here at Nerd School, if you were in that room and were part of the Avengers, whatever, what side do you think you'd be on at this point? Even saying you might change later, but just at this point, when they bring this up, they show all those videos of all the destruction. Are you with Cap or are you with Iron Man?
I'm going to point out that this is where they need a woman to lead the Avengers, because there's room for negotiation, and no one did that. We went straight to side A or side B. There was no.
It did feel like Black Widow was a little bit.
Well, but no one was listening.
Yeah,
like we went straight to either on our side or on this side, and there was no room. And I honestly think Cap was also trying to get there a little bit. I don't think he was saying no for the sake of saying no, but he was saying, like, let's look at this. Like, we can't just rush in and sign. So for me, I'm on that sign because, first of all, just as a tourist, I'm not just doing something because you told me to. I need details, and we need to talk this out. So I would have been on Cap side at that moment, just because I am not willy-nilly signing a document ever.
They had no input into. Suddenly they just have this giant book that's going to regulate them that they had no input in doing. And so, and they're trying to strong arm it through.
So you're on Cap side too, Andy?
I think so at this point, because I mean, it's not done. It's still the debate. There's like even a bit later when after they bring in Bucky again, like when Cap is just about to sign, because there needs to be safeguards, because there aren't any safeguards yet. Like, and then Tony said, it can be amended, whatever.
Yeah, we'll figure that out later.
But see, even that's like icky to me, because maybe this is just me as a Black woman in America. We have been told to sign a lot of things that did not work to our benefit as a people.
Right.
Okay.
So my instinct is, nah, you need to tell me all the fine print, and we need to negotiate this out so I am covered and safe.
You tell me first,
Yes, there is no sign now, negotiate later. Also, that's just a rule in business. Sign a legally document before you get in the weeds. And
and that kind of brings up a good point. Tony might be coming from a point of privilege where he's used to weaseling out of stuff, or I got enough power where I can make things change later on if I don't like it. And
even if it's not that, some people have enough privilege where they can trust the government, right?
Oh yeah,
you've never been a target of any of their campaigns, you would trust them. You have no reason. They didn't lie to your uncles and tell them they were serving their country and then were injecting them with syphilis, right? Exactly. There is a privilege in not battling with the government because you've never had to. That alone is a privilege. Like, forget the money. If you've never had a massive, and I don't mean like your one uncle, I mean a whole culture of people were affected by documents written by the government, then you'd have no reason to fight it. I was surprised at Cheadle in this moment as a man of color.
So that's what I was going to say. Do you think that Cheadle chose his side based on his ally, like his closest allies? Like
I think he chose the side because he's still a military man.
He's a military guy.
They both are military men. Like, I will note that both Cheeto and Mackie are men who serve their countries, right? They are men who serve their countries.
They both trust their friends too. Like,
they
I'm
do,
a Cap
but
guy,
we've watched Cheeto, ascend, right, in the rankings as time goes. We know Mackie's out after a while. He's done serving.
He the whole bit in Winter Soldier. He's like, what? Nobody's telling me what to do anymore. I'm happy about that. I'm happy to be
I think Cheeto is not just loyalty to Iron Man, though that's a factor, but I think he is an active duty military man.
So he's got
serves a role in the government. So he is going to want to aid on the side of the country he fights for. That makes sense to me.
Art Star, where are you at?
I'm Cap. Team Cap.
Your Team Cap too.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Why are you
firmly-
surprised?
I'm-
Why are you surprised?
Because you like to be the devil's advocate, and you know it.
I
You
was expecting
always
a
do.
devil's
Yeah,
advocate. Thank
yeah.
you.
But
Thanks,
here's the
Joe.
thing.
He
Here's the
always
thing.
is like, I'm
Here's
gonna
the
be
I
the
thing.
devil.
was.
Here's
I
the
will admit,
thing.
I was with
Here's
you.
the
I was
thing.
thinking, yeah.
Here's the thing.
Here's the
Now,
thing. Here's the thing.
Here's
if
the thing.
You have
Here's the
the
thing.
you having Cap and you have Iron Man, right? So Tony is siding with the American government. You know what I'm saying? and Cap is basically fighting for friends and for what he feels is right. To me, that's underlying Sith nature. So of course I'm jumping the Cap
Really? Because he's
bandwagon.
aiming for
I
what's
would-
right, which is not an underlying Sith motivation.
Well, see, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let's go quasi-political. The American government is right because they're the best country on the planet, right? So,
No.
so,
As a
Cap-
former,
so
as a
Iron
former
Man-
military
so Iron
member, I'm
Man-
gonna tell you that's
Iron-
why.
so
Uh-oh.
Iron Man.
She put her
I'm
glasses
doing,
up.
for Iron Man. I'm doing air quotes. Iron Man is fighting for quote unquote what's right. So
Iron
I
Man
don't
is
even
fighting
think
for the Empire. Iron Man is fighting for order.
no,
Yes,
That's the Sith endgame.
yes.
you
exactly.
guys wanted to be this. So basically, you're saying the American government is the empire, Andy. Is that what you're saying on this
Yeah.
podcast? That the
I would not be
American
the first to say
government
that.
Is
He
the
would not.
empire?
He would
It
not.
is.
Even
I
Joe,
agree.
even
think so.
Joe is agreeing with us on this one.
I tell my kids all the time
At
that
the,
the
at the end of
empire
the
is
day,
the
at
American
the end of
government.
the day, at the end of the day, TBJ. Yes, I'm directing this towards TBJ.
I love
Are
it, even
you
though Joe
mad?
and Andy are also
Are you
agreeing with
mad?
these points.
Well, because they're not Jedi. They're not the ones
But they
sitting there
are
like, oh,
agreeing with the
look at-
points
look
I
at
am
the
making,
stuff.
and you
Look
are
at the stuff.
specifically targeting
Look at
me.
this. Look at this. Look at the Sith. Look at the Sith siding with the people. They're not part of the Empire. That's what you're trying to say? You're trying to say that because I'm siding with Cap, I'm
I
not a part of it?
simply stated that I was surprised, as did Joe, who is your partner in crime and your future husband,
Yeah.
also said that he was
Well,
surprised you didn't go. Your own partner, your
Joe
intimate
gets a pass.
partner,
Remember, Joe's the student.
but
He don't
Joe
know
is
any better
your
yet.
love, the love of your life. And even Joe says,
Joe,
Let me just
Joe doesn't know
also
any better yet.
let me just also say that I am firmly planted on one side, and I am firmly on the side of the self-cooking hot dog.
okay, there you go.
That's where I'm
Done.
at. I want that self-cooking hot dog bad.
You better get you some funding. No, I only stated that I was surprised. That's all I stated. I'm surprised.
And,
Your own
then
husband
then
is
you guys
surprised.
wonder why so many people turn to the dark side. Because
But
even
I
when they're
love how-
trying to
I
do
just
good,
want to
it's
know.
almost like, wait, you didn't choose the dark side?
No,
How
that's not what
dare
I
you,
said.
sir?
I just said
How
I'm
dare you,
surprised
sir?
that you agree
Stay in
with
your
Andy
lane,
and I.
sir.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Now,
All
then-
I said, you were doing a lot of projecting.
Listen,
A lot of
listen,
projecting
listen.
is happening.
You know what?
No,
Here's
here's the thing.
Go ahead,
Here's the
Andy.
thing. Here's the
here's
thing.
the thing.
I-
Here's
no,
the thing.
no,
Here's the
no.
thing.
I didn't go for Andy because I didn't go for Joe because I say, not to throw shade. Joe don't really know any better yet, really, right? And the
But
reason
he
I
is
didn't
your
attack
Or
closest
you've
Andy,
established
partner.
that, and then I'm an idiot.
yeah, the reason I didn't attack Andy is because it's already been established that Andy constantly shits on me. So no matter what Andy says, it's going to basically be like me looking for toilet
But
paper.
you don't fight
Because-
with him, even though you say
because
he
Andy-
constantly
because
shits
that's
on you.
Andy's shtick.
But you're fighting
Andy's
with
shtick is
me.
I do
It
something
seems
and he
very
shits on me.
misogynistic at this
This
point.
is-
Are you a sexist?
Uh-oh.
Are you,
Uh-oh.
Hell
are you
no.
being sexist?
Hell
Is it because I'm a
no.
woman?
I'm listen,
new-
listen,
new
listen.
theory unlocked.
I'm all about.
Y'all,
Wow.
Art Star only argues with
Hey,
today, which smells kind of misogynistic.
Uh-oh. And this
don't you put
conflict.
that on me, Ricky Bobby.
Don't put- So this
Don't you
conflict is
put that on
good
me, Ricky Bobby.
content.
Yeah,
Uh,
well,
I was just gonna say I was agreeing with TBJ. Like we were surprised that Art wasn't contrarian for contrarian's sake,
yeah.
but then expressing that surprise, full on contrarian, just came right out.
he can't not be.
Again, this all harkens back to you guys not allowing me to be great. But it's okay. It's
How
okay.
do we not allow you
I will,
to be great?
I will continue to ascend into my Sithhood. Thank you,
Well,
guys.
I
Nobody's
think
stopping you.
while this conflict makes great content, I think it's time to compromise and reassure our listeners that we will be back for another episode to continue Civil War
Yes.
very soon. But this is probably a good place to just
We're gonna leave you
shelf
on
it for
this
here.
fight.
On this
We're
little
gonna ask
argument.
you to
Actually,
think
it was
about
not a
what
fight.
side
It was
you would be on, listeners.
it was a light discourse on the nature of light versus dark.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But listeners, we'd love for you, after you listen to this episode, before the next episode comes out, hit us up on our socials and tell us where you are at this part of the film. Are you Team Cap or are you Team Iron Man? Let us know.
Or
Nerd
team
Skool
self-cooking
Pod.
hot dog.
Or Team Self-Cooking Hot Dog. Let us know on Twitter or Instagram. Also, if art is misogynistic, you can let us know that too.
Wow. And I'm the Sith. Wow.
Thanks for listening.
Yes.
I didn't
I
say
feel like
why
you're trying to
you're
put
misogynistic.
I
You
feel-
just happen to be a
I
misogynist.
feel like you're trying to put a bad label on me.
You do,
And I
you
am
do that
not a
all by
fan.
yourself.
I am not a fan. Mm-mm. Not one bit.
All right,
Mm-mm.
friends, we're gonna go adult today.
Yes. We
Um,
got things
well,
to
we
do.
don't know what Art is doing. I'm gonna go adult.
Well, Art will be
He's gonna
working
go adult.
overnight.
Art's
thinking
got a
about his
job to
life
do.
choices.
He's
I'm
got
gonna
to secure.
quote unquote. Is he working? Is he though? We don't know.
He's going to
Yep.
make sure the Mean Girls cast doesn't take those books that I got hidden in
Oh,
the
yeah,
hallway.
yeah.
Andy's driving to Philly. TBJ's
I
working.
want to go see Mean Girls.
Oh yeah, I saw it yesterday. It was great.
I'm gonna go see it tonight.
And I'm going to be watching football.
Sounds
you
like a
ready for
I'll be
well-rounded
working
day.
while I'm doing it, but yeah,
You know, a little background ambiance while on the computer. Never hurt
That's
anybody.
right.
I'm
Anyway.
Beyonce.
we love you guys. We'll be back for another episode. This is going to be a lot of episodes on the Civil War.
There's a lot in
Yeah,
this movie.
There's a lot.
to cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of conflict, a lot of war, a lot of action. I mean, these scenes are unbelievable. These fight scenes.
They are.
I mean,
But
we forget about just the little things, like again, that first battle we talked about, that the whole thing we get into with the helicopter, the whole helicopter crash
Yeah.
scene. Like that's one of the minor action scenes in this movie because of all the awesome action. So this is such a great movie that I think
Yeah.
doesn't get as much attention as it should. Anyway, but we'll leave that here. Anybody want to say
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, we're right at the point where we're really getting into the meat of the disagreements, and I love that everyone had their own perspective and everyone got to express it. And it wasn't just Cap and Iron Man bullying everything over and saying you're with me or against me. It was everyone has input into this argument, and this is the kind of characters bouncing off of each other that is most exciting about all this.
Makes for
About
good
the
film.
MCU in general, just like, ooh, what happens with this character meets this character, and everyone when they have their characters and they all interact about it.
Yeah.
Yay, nerds! Yay, nerds!
Yeah, we're getting into the hot dog meat, the self-cooking
Yeah.
hot dog meat.
Lord help Joe. Somebody
That one is
fund
hot
him so
dog.
he can have a self-cooking.
I love hot dogs.
He
Lips
loves
and assholes,
beer.
everybody. And good night, everyone.
Lips and
Later,
assholes,
nerds.
everybody.
Excelsior.
No. God.
Excelsior.
Later.
Damn, Schnitzels winners.
If you had a choice
Winners,
between
winners.
Excelsior or Lips and Assholes, everybody.
Yeah, which one would it be, TJ?
Neither.
if you could only choose the two, though, what would you pick?
I'm still gonna just be mute.
You're not
So
gonna say Excelsior at all?
that's your damn thing.
They say I can't rap about the president no more, but evidently they don't see we in the streets still poor. Still more incarceration of my kinsmen by the prisons, and people thinking this election to end in racism. Proud over pessimism, glad to see Obama, but don't expect me not to speak out when I still see problems, Mr. Officer. Now they POTUS look like me, you gon' think again when seeing brothers rolling down the street. Every Martin Luther King on his American dream. Still a Rodney being beaten, screaming fuck the police. Me, I'm running through the pasture, trying to get away from master, but the dogs is on my ass, I gotta move a little faster. Can't pass for Caucasian, but I got a couple papers from the plantation saying I graduated. Congratulations, cool beans, but to most school mean trying to dodge STDs, living off government cheese. Trust the government, please. Not even if it was me sitting in the Oval Office as commander-in-chief, trying to give us free, but there's a nigga in my ear saying, you got it, Superman, you ought to keep it here. Get this distinctly clear, I'm all about jetting. Raps Kunta Kinte without the half-stepping. A new chapter, back with new lessons. After that, the final exam. Any questions?